Today we're going to be talking about how to write a policy memo. I'm going to introduce the general concept, what you would use a policy memo for, when, and for who, and then we're going to go into more details about how to prepare for a policy memo, what sort of research you want to do, the types of things you need to consider when you're writing, when you're researching, and then what to do with it at the end. In a more abstract way, a policy memo is an analysis of an issue, often with recommended actions. This can be anything from nuclear non-proliferation to administrative leave policies. And the idea here is that this person, despite maybe not knowing a lot about the issue, has to make a decision about it. So you want to make sure that they're as well informed as possible while taking into account the fact that they don't have a lot of time to devote to the issue. This makes it really good for legislators or policymakers, companies, nonprofit organizations, the press, and the general public, which makes it great for when you're going to be meeting with a policymaker to advocate for a science policy issue. Who is your audience? Who are you writing the memo for? What do they know about the topic, and what are their interests? Figure out where you're going to send the memo. Are you going to give this to a government official, to the press, to the public? And that will determine the level that your writing is at. You also need to think about what you want to accomplish with the memo. So are you trying to persuade someone to push a bill, to support an ally? You really need to understand the legislative process of whatever level of government you're looking at. Does it need to be voted out of committee? Who's in charge of introducing the bills or calling them up for a vote? And then is there anything already happening in the legislature on this topic that you can just sort of encourage your representatives to vote for this bill? Or do you need to encourage them to write and introduce a bill? Who is for and against your idea? This will give you an idea of some of the arguments that the opposition is using that you might want to refute with evidence. What is the political climate on the issue? If there's a lot of news about this issue and there are a lot of partisan politics involved, then this might not be the right time to write this memo to a legislator, but maybe to a nonprofit it would be okay. And so you can let these factors guide your arguments in the memo as well as who you want to target.
Be clear. So call your document a policy brief, give it a title that's short and concise, state your conclusion at the beginning, be bold and clear with your key point, provide analysis to support this statement, and use images and graphs to help bring that data to life. And remain objective rather than impassionate in your analysis. This is not an op-ed piece, this is a policy statement, so keep your feelings kind of at the door and remain objective.
The first writing tip is to use the active voice. Not only is the active voice clearer, it also reduces the amount of words that you have to use to get your point across, thus making your memo more concise. The second one is to avoid jargon. Policymakers don't necessarily understand all of the abbreviations that you use in your day-to-day work. Using that too much will just confuse them, and people are more likely to understand your point if it's at the beginning or the end of your writing. And any figures that you plan on using to illustrate your point need to be simple.
So now you have your policy memo. You've written it, you've done all the research, you know who it's for. What do you do with it? So the first thing you want to do is schedule a meeting with your legislator. This sounds intimidating, and I know a lot of people are nervous to do it, but it's actually very easy. You can email them or give them a phone call and request a meeting. If you are a constituent, you definitely want to mention that because that puts you at the top of their priority list. If you have a preference for which staffer, for example, the staffer who's in charge of education policy, then you would want to request that at this point. You want to tell them where you'd like to meet with them because a lot of legislators have multiple offices. So if you're in town in DC for a day or two, you want to tell them that and give them just a general idea of what you want to talk about. Don't get into the weeds here. A lot of societies have resources for this sort of thing. Many times they'll have people who are on staff at the society who can call you and walk you through the process and give you additional resources to prepare for your meeting.